Hey guys, Mike with Chassis Parts Online. Today I'm standing here in front of the one spot on my welding table that's clear. The rest of it's got a bunch of other pieces laying around here. But wanted to go over with you this morning was the 4-link setup that I'm working on for the F-100. Okay, and like everything else that I've been trying to make, it needs to be bolt-on, and it needs to be modular. Okay, now that's what I wanted to talk about today. Is some of the pieces that I had laser cut. Okay, so let's start with this piece. This is the first piece I had laser cut. Okay, now these holes on the outside here, these are where the front leaf spring mount would be on the 65 to 79 Ford truck chassis. The rear leaf springs, the front mount, that's what them 4 holes are, the outside holes. I think I had to move this hole a little bit. I think this hole might be over here somewhere actually on the frame. I'll have to go back and check that. I think one of them didn't line up. Now these other holes are for the bracket that's going to bolt to this, that also makes that adjustable. Okay, now some of you guys are going to run this on a damn near stock hat setup. Okay, and basically what I like to do with stuff like this is I like to have little small sleeves or crush sleeves that go in between it. But let me grab some of them, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so these are crush sleeves. These are a 1-inch DOM quarter wall, so a 1/2-inch bolt fits through that. Okay, so you can imagine this bolted to the frame. Okay, so let's say you wanted to go with damn near a stock hat. Okay, so you got to drill a hole through the frame, but you already got your deal there. You hit that with a centering punch. Now these are probably a lot longer than what you would normally have there, spacing this plate off that I'm going to put on here. You may only need a little bitty one that's about, I don't know, half that, or not even, just enough for the bolt head to clear. It depends on the width between your spring mounts on your rear end. Okay, and certainly that depends on which rear end you're using, whether it's narrow or not, and all that stuff. It's for the bolt-on kit. For a weld-on, doesn't really matter. You can put it up against it as far as you want. Okay, if you want to weld the mounts on the rear end. But let's just say, for example, that these weren't that tall. Let me see if I got some that aren't that tall. As usual, I'll start making a video before I get my shit together. Maybe it'd be a spacer smaller like that, you know. Maybe even smaller than that. Anyways. But basically, as you know, the main plate would bolt right against the frame. And these are 1/2-inch holes, so use some 1/2-inch bolts. Hell, you probably wouldn't even have to use grade 8. You're not going to shear. You're not going to shear a grade 5 bolt, or probably even a grade 2. But obviously you guys like to do grade 8 stuff. But I made this the shape of what the washer would be if you had a washer on there, like a lot of guys used to use flat washers. Here's the other plate. This is the updated version. It's just a more basic version without all the curves and all that, but it's the same thing. And these holes are so you can be adjustable. Now, I got 2 different plates here that would go on there. Okay, start with this one. Let's say you only had spacers here that are like a 1/2-inch tall, right? Okay, you put your first plate on there, and then you got spacers that are taller that would be the same as your bushing. So if you had a 4-link piece like that, you know, with a bushing top and bottom, and put your other plate would be right there on top of it with spacers in between, and that would space off of and all of it would just bolt together. And it would have the crush sleeves in between to hold it all together. And I've even got a stronger version right here that's got a and another version where I took a piece of this that can be added on right there to go in between to weld down, basically that piece right there. And you got like this one here. I was going to put it like this, and I haven't cleaned all these up, so some of these may not go into the holes yet. I got a brand new tumbler. I just got to put it together. Just haven't had time to do it. Anyways, that'd be a good brace, welded in, and that would be pretty damn strong to space that away from there, and then have these 4 holes, and then you got the option to go up here like that, and that would be raise the suspension way up. It'd be low, where it would be low, sitting on the ground, or you could bring it down to these holes and you get closer to a taller ride height. And obviously I can come up with more holes in between here and make it more adjustable, but I was going to test with just these holes right here, see where we're at. Could add some more down this way, or add some in between too, to dial that in on the final version. But that's where we're at. These 2 plates, you'd have a plate on the outside, plate on the inside, plate like that but without the hole, or a plate like that on the outside with the other one on the inside. However works out in the end. Okay, and then on the axle, this is what I have for the axle. This is actually a weld-on mount. Okay, this is the bottom half of the mount there, where your four-link bar would be right there. This is where your coilover or your shock would mount on the back. On the back, that would go like that. Now, this hole right here, this is so I can take a piece of material like this. This is what I make the arms out of. 1.25" quarter wall. Yeah, that's some pretty serious stuff. Turn the ends down to make it fit exactly between there, where I can mock that up by putting this in there with a nut on it, so that this gap is exactly right as I'm welding it. Then I can either take it out or make these where they stayed in there permanent and weld them in. But at least having one in there, at least to make sure it's spaced right. You can do that here too, but in the middle you got a lot better, because you can make it just a hair wide, so that when you weld it and it starts to pull together, when you take the spacer out, it doesn't collapse down to smaller than the bushing needs to be. Anyway, that's the bottom. And the top looks like that. Okay, so basically it goes all the way around the axle and touches on each other. Okay, so here's the thing. Don't that look better than some goofy generic tabs that you buy off the internet, where you got a little tab just welded on the top of the axle and another one on the bottom? The shape of that together on the axle, I like it myself. And certainly that's just the first part of this. The plan is to, with the 9-inch, we'll use the spring perch, and we'll make a bracket. You've seen those guys, those mounts that swap the spring perch around. We'll make a bracket that bolts onto the 9-inch rear end and goes right onto that spring perch to stabilize it, and go right from there to a 4-link style mount that's got a bushing hole like this, top and bottom, and it'll just bolt on. But we'll make that same mount for Crown Vic 8.8. The mounts are obviously a little bit different. We'll make a 4-link mount that either uses the factory ones or bolts into the factory ones to convert to what we need to get this 4-link to fit, or an Explorer 8.8 which does have factory purchase. You can use those or use a weld on like this. Basically, it's going to be a modular system where you can change out parts. You want to make the bars longer. We can make this mount not have those odd shaped holes and just have 4 rectangle shaped holes where you can move that mount forward or backward anywhere in there, so you can get your bars whatever length you want and drill your own holes if that's what you want. But it'll be a standard bushing, which uses a 2-inch. This is not 2 inches. This is about 1 3/8 wide. It's a 2-inch across here, 2-inch bushing, 2-inch OD, 2-inch wide here with a 1/4-inch poly bushing on inside of it. That takes you to 2.5. Okay. Then runs the inner sleeve. We'd do something like that, that's not exactly what I was talking about, but similar. Be a just typical 4-link bushing, poly bushing, so that they're replaceable. Ours, the ones that we have made for us, they're basically the same specs as far as diameter and everything as an energy suspension, like a 2004 energy suspension, or some of those MO 22 whatever Daystar bushings. I'm not a fan of Daystar bushings; they're just not that good. But the ones we have a 85 on the hardness scale, about the same as a energy suspension in the polyurethane. So, and the bars basically will be 1 1/4 inch, 120 wall like that right there. You don't need a lot of thickness on a 4-link bar, because you're not putting, unless you're going to put bags on them, then you don't even want to go that small. You want to go with a 1.5 inch with a truss brace, or you want to go square tube. But if your spring is not going to be on the bars itself, you need to get your bars as light as possible, and that's about where you can do DOM 1 1/4 inch, 120 wall with the bushing like that, welded on the ends, on both ends, or even with an adjustable on each end. And then we'll also release a version that uses a cam bolt like our suspension. I've got some 4-link mounts like this, and here's one of them. And of course, I would grab a rusty one that's been sitting around the shop. Okay, now see, this is made to sit on top of a piece of square tube, on top or on the bottom of a square tube. Okay, and it's made to hold this here is to put a stud through it, or a bolt through it, like a piece of all thread like that, to space it apart when we're welding, to make sure it gets the right width. Okay, and it would use a cam loop like this, not this exact one, but one like that. And see that one lines up with it, because the loop is the same. It's just not the same on that end. Basically, uses a cam loop with an offset cam bolt, where you can adjust the suspension. You can adjust the rear end as far as alignment of your rear end without having to take pull the bolt out of the bushing, and have to turn it in or out to adjust it. You can turn this with 2 wrenches, and your cam bolt will go pull that bar forward or backward. If, let's say, this is your upper left-hand bar, you need to go, and your rear end needs to move just slightly forward on the left-hand side. You pull that forward and get your alignment exactly right. You may even have to take your right side and pull back on it just a little bit and lock it down to get your rear end exactly dialed in where you want. And then also, We will make a mount that works with this to run a F-100 bar or watch lick. All this stuff right here is secondary to control arm stuff right now, which is at the forefront, which is because we're a little bit behind on those. So just give me a little bit more time on these forelinks, and I'll have them out. I got some help now in the shop, which is helping me catch up. And we'll get these forelinks out as quickly as we can. I know you guys are ready for some that are not just generic stuff, but are actually made for an F-100, and you can change out parts. You put yours on coilovers for now, and then maybe later on you want to swap the bags. We can, if it's a bolt-on, we can have a mount that bolts on with a bag mount on it. Okay, and that way, as a modular system, you're not cutting a bunch of stuff off the frame. You can just unbolt it and bolt something else on. Same thing with, if you like your truck a little low and you drive it around like that and you like it, but then later on you want it to be a lot lower, you just move the mount and it goes a lot lower. So we're trying to make this system modular, and that takes a lot more extra design work because you got to design a bunch of multiple parts around that. So anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble on about this, and have a good day, guys. See you.